Hey guys, what's going on? Bobby here, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the ATA Network podcast. We're back, brand new episode on the airwaves here, and this is going to be a good episode. Last episode, or the first episode rather, we kind of briefly mentioned that we were going to do an episode talking about my 2021 racing season. We talked a little bit about what I did in 2021 in that first episode. If you haven't listened to it, go back and listen because you're going to kind of miss out on some bits and pieces that me and my guest, Matt Zigaitis, are going to be talking about. But we're going to basically highlight that Skip Barber race series that I competed in, traveling around to a bunch of different awesome racetracks across the country that are known for various things. You know, Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas, home to Formula One in the United States, New Jersey Motorsports Park, Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, and the historic, infamous Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And just the emotions and the thrills that I went through this season, I mean, I can't even fathom it, and it'll be interesting to see what words I can come up to explain it, but I can't think of another guest that could potentially be as good as this one to have on with me to kind of go through this, and returning back to the podcast for his, I guess, second episode here, none other than Mr. Matt Zigaitis. Matt Zigaitis, welcome back to the ATA Network podcast.
Thank you. It's good to be here, and I'm enjoying it. And yeah, we got a lot to talk about. This Formula series that you're able to participate in 2021, it was huge. And you know, seeing you coming up from the karting world in St. Louis, continuing to expand and broaden your racing horizons towards that inevitable goal of potentially, you know, racing professionally. Yeah, man, this 2021 was exciting, not just behind the camera, seeing everything, just, you know, everything that even happened off camera, just seeing you grow, not just as a person, but as a driver. It was really exciting. So I'm really looking forward to talking about the Formula series.
It was an incredible year, that's for sure. I mean, and the thing is like I've always pushed to, you know, find that next thing, and you get to the point where I've won the championships in karting, and you always think about wanting to do the next thing, and trying to make that transition from karts to cars is very difficult, very expensive, and just fortunately this opportunity fell into my hands in such a perfect way. I mean, I worked really hard to get to that point and to get that opportunity. And fortunately, you were there along the way. I mean, we'll talk about another episode, and I know I've said that, and that's like my famous catchphrase now to really hook you guys in to keep listening here to the podcast. But no, we'll talk about my Skip Barber story in a future episode of the podcast, kind of everything from when I got introduced to Skip Barber and then right before I got hired on. But that hiring moment at COTA, like I mentioned in that first episode, it happened the same weekend that I debuted in the Skip Barber Formula Series. So it'll be a good transitional period for you to kind of listen to like the before we got to the race series when we get to that episode. But we're going to talk about the race series, and fortunately, and if you guys missed that first episode, I know I've said it already, but go back and listen to it because you'll kind of miss out on some things. But as we mentioned, Matt Zigaitis here was just an awesome asset to me for this year in the Formula Car Series. He would, you know, travel with me to these events. He would be the guy that I could vent to or describe what I'm feeling on the racetrack. He would keep me mentally in the right mindset. And then in addition to all of that, the most important role that I would say that you played was being the main media guy for the majority of the season for me. And you were there at the debut race in Circuit of the Americas. Unfortunately, you weren't able to make it to New Jersey, so I brought Brendan Lauer along with me. And then you came back from Mid-Ohio, which was another just awesome weekend for me.
That was a good weekend.
And then it was really fun. And then when we get to my season finale in Indianapolis, which another event that you were unfortunately able to get to, but Brendan Lauer was there, and we'll have Brendan on at some point, be able to talk to him, and he's got some pretty cool stories. And we go back to back in our karting days, and then now him being able to help me out with some of the video stuff. And he's still karting, and he's actually made his way into some Super Comp races, and he's won a race, and he's got some success in Super Comp, and he's going to campaign again in the Super Comp series again in 2022. So it'll be cool to kind of get a chance to talk to him, and maybe if we get to talk to him through some of his Super Comp series stuff, then we'll be able to kind of catch up with him and see what he's up to and all that fun stuff. So it'll be cool to talk to him about what his experiences were being a part of the Skip Barber race series for the 2021 schedule. And, you know, let's just jump right into it. So Matt, I guess go ahead. I'm going to give the reins to you on this. Kind of set us up for COTA here. You know, we kind of got some of the school stuff, you know, shot. We did that deal, and I got that offer to run in the race, and that was just such an awesome opportunity for me. And I went to you and I was like, bro, I'm about to do my first ever professional start in a car at Circuit of the Americas. What was that like for you to be able to hop on board for that opportunity? And what do you remember about that event?
Well, absolutely, man. I mean, I know that I'm twice your age and you're a great friend, but it's also like the prodigal son kind of point of view for me, seeing you grow through racing and things like that, and knowing where you want to be and not knowing when you may get there. Being a part of the race schools, that was awesome. That was great. And I'm not going to discredit it at all, but as soon as you had called me telling me that you were going to be in your first Formula race, man, I couldn't tell you the amount of emotion, just a swelling of pride for you. And, it was kind of, from what I understand, going into, the Circuit of the Americas, it was a one-off invitation. You weren't sure if, you're going to be able to run the full season or not, but that you at least had an opportunity. And because we were just coming off of, your 3-day and then your 2-day advanced race school at COTA, I couldn't imagine a better place for you to debut than back at Austin for your first Formula race, because I knew that you were keeping up and you were setting a tone, you were setting a pace during the school. So I knew that if you got that opportunity to really show, Skip Barber and all their followers what you were capable of doing, I knew that this place was going to be it for you. But you also didn't really let that schooling creep into any realm of like arrogance or anything like that. But it gave you confidence that, I'm good. I'm good with COTA. This is a great place to go. And so we did it. And I don't think you could have wiped your smile off the entire time on our way going down there, during the practices, during the qualifying. And then it just went boom, straight laced right when we found out that we were going to be racing. Well, you were going to be racing in the rain. I'm like, that's going to be interesting. So I actually have a question for you. Knowing everything that you knew about COTA, everything in the school was done, for the most part that I can remember, was in the dry. How did you feel knowing that your COTA premiere, your Formula Series premiere, was kind of spoiled by rain, knowing that rain is a big equalizer, and you're like, oh God, now I got to do this in the rain. So what were your nerves like, if any?
I definitely had nerves. And the other thing too is like, it was crazy. Like you said, we did the schools in the dry and we never had any rain in the schools at COTA. But fortunately, my first ever school that I did with Skip Barber was at Indianapolis in the Formula car, and it actually rained on us in the last session.
That's right.
And
that's right.
Rain at Indy versus rain at COTA is two different things. The Indianapolis road course doesn't get ran very frequently, and so the pavement there doesn't get very polished with rubber. Whereas COTA's ran a lot, and that weekend as well, we were sharing the track with SRO. So you've got these big, heavy GT cars, the touring cars, they're all laying down the rubber. The track was really rubbered down more than any other COTA that I've ever seen. Usually when we're there for a school, there's not much track action, right? We're the only people there. But with this specific weekend, though, and SRO being there, the track was rubbered. And we actually ended up getting rain on that second qualifying session, and we were out on track on slicks. And that was a scary time. That was very scary. I remember going into the final corner and having the rain on the visor and being like, okay, I got to take it easy. So instead of using the full threshold braking of the Formula car, and that's just one thing about that car that's insane, is the braking capability of it. I figured, okay, I can't do threshold braking because I'm going to lock up the tires. I'm going to give it half brake going into this corner so that way I can see it on the other side. And I probably got to a 2-pedal, which would be about 25% braking. Let's say it's a quarter braking, right? And I just locked up the fronts, right? And I'm like, oh no, this is bad. And then I've locked up. I'm going straight, looking at the sand pit right in front of me. And I remember specifically going to turn and the tire's not doing anything, and I'm still going straight. And then just barely before I got to the sand pit, the car finally accepted that steering input, and I was able to go on my way. And that's when I really got scared of the rain. I'm like, this is going to be just disappointing. Like, I felt like I was being fluked out. And in the vlog, I said, and I truly believe this, I was like, I want to see consistent improvement throughout the weekend. That's where I set the bar in racing, right? Because you never know, like, and sure, I was confident in my ability, and I thought, honestly, if I'm being completely transparent and showing my true ego, I thought I would be able to top 3 in my first race. And I told myself, I was like, no, you don't. You set unrealistic goals for yourself. If you want to, like, say, I'm going to win in my first start, well, that's good for some confidence, but then when you go out there and you don't win, then you feel defeated. You feel like you didn't really achieve anything.
Totally deflated. Absolutely.
So I just set myself up for success, even if I wasn't actually genuinely successful in the results. And so I want to see consistent improvement, and that's what we ended up seeing. But after that qualifying session and getting the rain, I was really scared of racing that day. And then, you know, the one thing about COTA that was unique about all the other races was the fact that we were actually broadcasted. We had a live stream of the race. The other races didn't really have that. Yep. You just had live timing. And so I knew with it being my first race, like, the video was being played at Kartplex. The video was being played at my parents' house. The video was being played at all my family, all my friends were watching this race. And there was pressure there. I didn't feel that same pressure with all the other races too. So you've got that pressure mixed in with the pressure and the lack of confidence in the rain. And the fact of, like, you go out and wreck this car, it's the same thing with Ignite, like what we talked about in episode 1. You're paying for the damage. And this isn't an Ignite car anymore. This is a Formula car. The wing, the front part of the car, the little bit of carbon fiber there, it costs about the same as Ignite car total if you just go out there and just wrap the whole thing around a pole. So the nerves were really, really high at COTA, and that's for sure. No question about that. One of the most stressful things I think I've ever done. And I remember the moment that it all really fully hit at the peak of the nervousness was right when we were on the pace laps getting ready to go green, and we're side by side. And I'm like, I'm about to start a race in a Formula car at Circuit Americas. It's being broadcasted and it's raining, and I can't see anything because of all this rain spray, all the rooster tails. And I'm like, I honestly, like, I literally thought to myself, I don't know if I belong here. Like, I don't know if this is me or not. And that's when the nerves were at its peak.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I'm not on iRacing or anything like that, but you know, the F1 2021, running the F2 series or something like that, you know, running in the rain is just absolutely just visibility is down to practically like 5%. And you're even running on the highway, but you have the wiper blades there. So, you know, I can understand how all that you just spoke about, how all that coming together, you're just like, oh God. But let me tell you, dude, you got there for a reason. I certainly hope that you put away, do I belong here? You know, you put that question away soon after, because seeing what you're able to do in that race alone, being able to quickly shift your expectations, and then you're actually, you know, I think everybody in the field, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe everybody in the field, most everybody, especially the front runners, they had done a season or more in the series. I think you were pretty much the one or the only rookie there. You actually kept it straight the entire time. So please give yourself plenty of credit.
I appreciate that. And yeah, most of the guys in the field, like I think of Johnny Gindy, obviously he ran the series before and won the scholarship. Nathan Bird, he's a multi-talented driver doing many different things. Yeah, I mean, Lindsey Brewer. I mean, the names, I could go on and on about the people that I raced against with a lot more experience than I did. The race itself was really good. Once I got going is when the nerves really calmed down.
And then you found your groove, you found your pace too.
Right, and some of the getting actually side by side with people, and once the field spread out and you could see, I mean, it was crazy. Once we got the green flag, and this is no exaggeration, we got the green flag and the spray gets more intense. And it got to a point going up to turn 1 that the only thing that I could see was the blinking red light of the rain light on the back of the cars. I couldn't see the cars. So I'm going off of red lights on the back of the cars to know what's going on in front of me. And that's a wild way to, that's baptism by fire, as they say.
Right.
It doesn't get more extreme than that. Fortunately, you know, I had some rain in other races. There's a lot of races here that end up seeing some rain. This was definitely the most intense rain that we had all season long. Once I found that groove and was able to kind of get going, and the race was pretty smooth after that. The one moment that I remember vividly about this race is Brian Searsley, a guy in front of me that raced the season last year. I believe he raced the first race of the season as well at Sonoma. So he was kind of more up to speed than I was at the time. And we're going through we just got out of the stadium section. We're taking, going around the carousel around the Coda Tower there. And I'm following behind him probably 6 or 7 car lengths, right? And he's going through there, and there's a stream of water going across the track in the carousel. And he hits that stream, and he goes spinning, right? He's like loops around, like he probably spins around, does a full 720 or whatever it was, and then his car lands in the gravel. And I'm 7 car lengths behind him, and I see him spin out. And I'm on his line, going the same speed, trying to chase him down. And I'm doing the thing that you don't want to do, where you're just trying to look at the driver in front of you and kind of take notes of what he's doing and follow him. Yep. And it was like, I saw him spin out, and I'm like, oh God, I'm going the same speed on the same line of the track. I'm about to face the same fate. And as soon as I realized that, I remember hitting that puddle and going like full lock to the left in the steering wheel. And then like I saved it. I like let off the gas and saved it and kept going. And that was like my heart sank to my stomach. Like, oh God, I can't. Oh God, I can't do this. Just please get me back in the pits. And you know, I fortunately I didn't. The big goal for In the Rain, right? I took the whole, you know, consistent improvement thing kind of went to the back of my mind. It became like survival of the fittest, right? In the Skip Arbor race series, if you have an off track, you need to come in the pits. I mean, this is a learning series. It's all about trying to improve you as a driver, and these are their cars, right? So if you go off track, they want to make sure that their equipment's fine. And last thing you want to do is break something, continue on in the race, and then have an even more severe incident to where you could potentially damage the car more or hurt yourself.
Or hurt somebody else for that matter, absolutely.
Exactly. So, you know, if you go off, I mean, you're going a lap down. Simple as that. So the big thing that I always focused on, you know, from that point on in these Skip Arbor Formula Series races was to be able to stay on track. If you can stay on track, I mean, that's half the battle in itself right there.
Yeah.
So that became the big thing for me, especially in the wet, because it'd be really easy to lock up and go off track like I did in qualifying. So once I kind of put that focus in, and once I had that moment, that big moment in the carousel, it became pretty simple. And I remember coming off track and we got together in the garage area. I wanted you to record that post-race interview, and I remember you telling me after the fact, like coming to me to do the post-race interview, you were like, "Oh God, he's not going to be happy."
Be pissed.
Yeah, and I was probably just as happy after that as I was maybe after Mid-Ohio or Indy, to be honest, because it was like I just did this and I survived.
And survived it.
Yeah, and I saw consistent improvement. You know, that 7th place finish, although compared to what we'll get into in a moment, doesn't sound very good. For me, I got my goal. I saw consistent improvement. I survived in the rain, and all in all, it was a really, really fun time.
You weren't last, and you didn't finish it in the pits.
And honestly, I mean, any race that you can do where that's the case, especially when it's like your first race into a formula car, I mean, that's a big deal. You know, whether it's Skip Barber, USF, IndyCar, I don't care. If it's your first race and you can just bring it in one piece and on the lead lap, it's a pretty big deal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you know, it was such a pleasure to be there with you, even though I was out on track and wasn't so pleasurable out there in the infield, like down by turn 11, where I was just getting absolutely dumped on. Let's switch gears and let's fly over to the next race. That was New Jersey, right?
Yeah. So New Jersey Motorsports Park, in my mind, that's like the least, I don't want to say desirable, but least desirable destination. I mean, compared to these tracks like Indy and Mid-Ohio and Coda, you think you're going to New Jersey Motorsports Park, and it's like, okay, well, you know, what is this track? What's so special about it? And to be honest, New Jersey was a really fun track, a really fast track, not a lot of really super tight technical corners. I mean, and to clarify, New Jersey actually has 2 track layouts, Thunderbolt and Lightning, and we were racing at Lightning. So Lightning is a little bit, I would say, of a faster track in my mind. I don't know if that's completely accurate, but that's how I look at it. And really, I mean, you're just kind of all out except for one 90-degree left turn. Everything else, you're pretty much just going through a lot of really flowy corners. It had been a couple months. Like Coda was like, wasn't that like, I want to say March, April? It was early in the year.
Yeah, it was pretty early.
I unfortunately missed out on that, because Coda was round 2 of the Skip Barber series. I missed out on the 3rd round. Ended up actually doing some media stuff for it. And then they returned to New Jersey for the round 4 event. And this was later in the year at this point. So I'd been out of the car for like 4 or 5 months. And so I kind of had that initial like rookie feeling nervousness at the start of the weekend. And like I mentioned, unfortunately you weren't there, but I had Brendan Lauer there. And, and you know, this is going to sound a little weird, but like when I'm there with Matt versus when I'm there with Brendan, like attitude kind of changes a little bit more. With Matt, like I know what you can do behind the camera. Brendan's pretty relatively new with filming me in the Formula car. He's never been to one of these Skip Barber events with me to film. So I was kind of a little bit more nervousness and probably doing a little bit more of a director role. And so being able to kind of hang out with him, and it seemingly was a little bit more relaxed than Coda. And then without the threat of the threat of rain, it kind of calmed me down a little bit more. But I was still lacking speed, right? So we went out for the practice sessions and ended up being like 3 or 4 seconds off these guys. And that was like, okay, well, sounds like Coda all over again. I'm not improving. That's unfortunate. And then, this is what I would consider the biggest moment of the season in my mind as far as driver development. I'm sitting there and I'm doing video review with Carter Fartuck. And Carter's an awesome guy, right? I mean, he's just a talented driver behind the wheel. Love the guy to death. We're sitting there doing video review, and one of the things that Skip Barber instructors do not do is tell you to go faster, right? Like you just don't tell anybody to do that. They don't tell their paid or arrive and drive or instructor racers when it's a TC weekend to go faster. They don't tell you as a student if you're doing their programs to go faster. You just don't improve if you go faster. And Carter kind of... Right. He very calmly, without trying to push me, told me that, hey, you can, how about instead of, using the brakes going into this corner, you just use a lift and kind of get the weight to transfer. You can get weight transfer to the front by lifting instead of using the brakes, and just kind of set the front end up going into the corner. And that may help you out a little bit, and you might be able to feel something there. And I went out in the next session and I tried it. I was like, okay, well, we're at the point now, we're at New Jersey. There's some grass runoff. I can get away with making a mistake and going off, right? I've seen other people in this series go off track, and in whether it was Ignite Karts or Skip Barber, I can proudly say that up to this point, and knock on wood, I have never had a big accident. Did you knock on wood for me? Is that what I heard?
I did.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I got you, buddy.
I've never had a big off, never had a lot of damage. So like in Ignite, I never bent a spindle, never bent an axle, none of that stuff. Same thing with Skip Barber. I've never hurt the car. I've never even really gone off track in the Skip Barber car, unless you count, Coda, but I haven't went off in a sand pit or in the grass and had to get saved. So, I'm like, if I'm going to learn where I'm at. And I was probably driving the car, honestly, at like 80% up to this point. And once I used that knowledge that Carter Fartuck instilled upon me, then there's a couple things that happened. One, I got fast. So instead of being 3 seconds off, I was within a second, less than a second off the top guys. And I'm like, okay, this is cool. And then the other thing I realized is I finally drew that parallel from how to drive a kart to how to drive a Formula car. I finally felt that same sort of comfort level of, okay, I can feel this limit. I can feel where the car's dancing. I can feel this. I've got that seat in the pants feel, and I know when I'm about to spin out, and I know that slide. Like I think of like in the...
It's almost like you equalized with the car, and
yeah, basically I'm thinking like if people know the track or can go back in the vlog and watch, like from turn 2, 3, 4, 5, and you go over this hill, like that whole section is a bunch of like lift off the gas, get the car to rotate real fast and get on the gas. It was completely parallel to, for example, the North Pole at Gateway Carplex or turn 1, except you're using North Pole and an Ignite, I may not use the brakes as often. If I've got a really good setup and it's hooked up really well, I'll just lift, give it that flick, turn in. Yeah, thank you. You're welcome. You can pay me for that later. PayPal, Venmo, whatever. But it was like you go on the North Pole and you kind of lift, and you can rely on those tires and the way that you angle the car to kind of save you through that corner. And I was experiencing that in a Formula car, and I finally drew that parallel, and I'm like, oh my God. It literally is a big go-kart. Everyone tells me it's a big go-kart, and I'm like, haha, no, it's not. Yeah, it is. It totally makes sense. And so that's where I kind of found my footing, and I'm like, okay, but I'm not going to get too carried away here. And so I still underdrove the car a little bit, especially in that first race, but I gained some spots. I made passes. I made like 2 or 3 passes in that first race, and then I don't want to say I came to life in the second race. The second race podium, and I know you're going to correct me on this, but let me explain. The second race podium was kind of fluke-ish because there was a lot of incidents up ahead, but a podium is still a podium.
In the game, though.
Yeah. So a podium is still a podium, no matter how you get it, right? People in front of you can wreck out. That's exactly how I got my first win in Ignite. We go back to Whiteland, right? The leaders wreck out, and I was able to kind of steal one from them. That's kind of how I got my first podium at Skip Barber. These guys up in front of me, they weren't as consistent. They made mistakes, kind of spun out or wrecked out or whatever, and I was able to take advantage of it. And we had a caution really late in the race, and I'm sitting in third with a lapped car in front of me, and then the top two guys are in front of him, and I got a lap car in front of me. I'm like, oh my God, we're going to restart this race with a lap car in front of me. I'm going to lose out on my first ever podium because I got a lap car in front of me. So I had to really think a strategic plan on how to get around this guy when we got the green, because I don't know how much longer in this race we have. You know, we don't have timers. We don't have radio communications. I don't know how much longer we have to go in this race. So I'm like, okay. And I even like yell it out so my GoPro can hear it, so I can talk like and kind of tell my viewers what my mental process is. And you can go back and see that in the video. I'm always thinking about the video. So, you know, I'm telling to the camera, like, okay, I'm going to try to get a jump on this guy. I'm going to try passing him up on the inside, take the preferred line away going into turn one, and run away from the field. Because I've got William Lambros right behind me, and I'm like, this guy's going to eat me up forever. Like, I need to get away from him. Fortunately and unfortunately, we went green. I was able to get around him, no problem. But then another incident happened behind me, and we went back to full course caution. And I'm like, please throw the checkered. Please throw the checkered. I'm still in third. Will Lambros is now directly behind me, and I have no lap traffic to use as a pit.
There's no buffer there.
And so we go around for a couple laps of full course caution, and fortunately I come back around and I see the checkered flag, and I start screaming. I'm like, oh my God. Like, I cannot believe it.
You did it.
This is in my second round of racing, my third official race in Skip Barber, and I'm on the podium. I'm like, oh my God. And so I come back in, and I'm greeted with, you know, a lot of my friends, you know, a lot of my coworkers at Skip Barber, obviously, and the instructors, and everyone's congratulating me, and Brendan shows up, and it's like, you know, I shared a moment with Brendan, and it really like solidified, like, you can't, like, drawing this connection from iDrive to now where I'm on a podium in a Formula car. It's just absolutely insane. And I know I say that a lot, but like, this is a completely unbelievable thing. Like, this is wild. Like, this is the peak of my life right here. Like, I can just die right now and I'm going to be happy forever. You know, it's like, this is it. And
absolutely.
It was just, I started crying again. Like, it was just like Whiteland version 2, literally. Like, this is unfreaking believable. And we get on the podium and I spray it, and I pose for some photos, and I'm doing my little post-race thing. And that's the beautiful thing about why I love the camera in my face, you know, immediately after something, because that's when you're going to get the raw emotion. And just the raw emotion that was captured after the podium stuff that I talk about in that video towards the end of the vlog. I mean, it's all real. It's just so genuine, and like, it's just such an unbelievable experience for me.
Well, in any racing series where a podium exists in terms of goals, statistics, celebration, payouts, points, whatever you want to consider, the podium in and of itself, obviously everybody goes out there, you know, you got, you know, anywhere from 10 to, you know, 30 people vying for 3 positions, obviously the most coveted being the top step. But going for the podium in and of itself is a feat and a goal, especially with New Jersey, where you grab your first podium without me, jackass. You know, being able to see, I mean, that was a defining moment for me to witness, seeing you go from iDrive and slaying it there, and then getting up into Ignite and working your way there towards podium finishes and ultimately the championship there. And then the goal of a lot of drivers that, you know, are wanting to make a professional career out of this. You got, you got a couple of local superstars, Spike Kohlbecker and Evan Stummer, that went towards the Road to Indy program, and you see their progression and their performance, and then being able to see you get to that podium. That's insane, man. I mean, it's more of a comment than anything. It's really cool to be able to see where that goes. And when somebody is not expecting that, and you fight through hell in order to get there, even third place feels like a monumental obstacle that you just conquered. But yeah, those emotions, I mean, I felt them myself, and I know that, you know, there's others that we've raced with at the Carplex that have felt that. Enjoy them when they come to you, no
Mm-hmm.
matter how they came to you. Without all those, in-race resources such as like a fully implemented digital dash, integrated into the scoring and timing and all that,
Mm-hmm.
nobody talking in your ear, just having situational awareness of who was in front of you, who was behind you, and being able to push, when to push, where to push. Where does all that come from? It can't just come from the Skip Barber Racing School. Does that also come from all your time in karting as well? Because we don't have those resources in karting as well. We just have what, the flags are telling us.
The beautiful thing about racing for me, and this is kind of going off track, but I'll get back to what you're saying. I love racing because when we're in just right now, right, for example, you're thinking about, social media is such a big part of our world, right? So you're like, okay, I wonder what's going on Facebook, Instagram. I need to check my email. I wonder if I've got any phone calls, anybody looking for me. You got all these things that you're thinking about your general life, right? And as soon as you put that helmet on and you strap into a Formula car, the only thing that you're worried about is how can I get this Formula car to the finish line the fastest? The last thing you're thinking about is all this other junk that you think about on the regular, right? And so it's the time where I'm at the most bliss, at the most silence, at the most calm, right? But at the same time, you're thinking about a lot of things on how you get that car to the finish line first. So you're thinking about, okay, so who's in front of me? Who's behind me? How are my tires looking? What's the situation like? Weather, wind direction, temperature. You're thinking about a lot of things. And it was the same thing in karting, right? I mean, you go around the racetrack at Kartplex and, you don't have a digital dash. You have a micron, but that doesn't really tell you a lot of the information that you really care about. Like am I closing in on the guy in front of me? Is the guy behind me catching? So you're having to use these tactics. You have to use reference points, right? You go around through the 90, look into the exit of turn 1 as you're going through the 90, and you can kind of see across the track, and it's like, okay, I see that Trevor Eggemeyer's in the lead, and he's right parallel with the light pole. All right, next time by, I'm going to see how he compares to that light pole. If he's obviously behind the light pole, then I'm catching on him. If he's not, then that's the other way around. It's the same thing in the Formula car, right? You're always doing it off of reference points. And then you're looking in your mirrors, looking behind you, seeing what people are doing. It's a beautiful thing because in karting, if people are looking, you want to see what's behind you, right? But if you look directly behind you, and if you've watched my karting advice videos, you never want to look behind you. You never want to do that. But if you're going through turn 1, you can look into the 90 and see who's behind you, kind of counter of what I just explained. So, in the Formula car, you can actually just use rear view mirrors and no one can really tell if you're looking at them or not. So that's an advantage. But no, I mean, yeah, it's definitely a lot of the things that I learned in karting, but also just being really super aware. There's people that get into a Formula car and they just start freaking out and melting down, and they can't really, filter through their emotions to really being analytical behind the wheel, have a really analytical mindset. But I think that's something that I'm really good at. Like, I can get in the car and just really just turn it off. And it really helps when you've got a lot of good people behind you. When I think of shooting these videos, and after Brendan did this New Jersey race and he produced a really good video, then I was able to, as long as I had you or Brendan there doing the video, I didn't have to worry about the video. And if I didn't have to worry about the video, then there was nothing for me to worry about except for race. And really after New Jersey and I got comfortable in the car, then you're always trying to improve, but that's not your excuse anymore. You can get on the podium. I proved it at New Jersey. So now it's just the process of at Mid-Ohio and Indy, the final 2 races that we'll discuss. It's all about being consistent with that progress and just trying to find those extra tenths.
Absolutely. Well, you definitely mentioned it right there. Moving on to Mid-Ohio, that was your next appearance. And as we'll get into, COTA was wet, very wet. New Jersey was very dry. Mid-Ohio was like a bit of combination of COTA and Jersey in that we had a little bit of rain, we didn't have a little bit of rain. So first off, when you got notice that you're going to be running into this the rest of the series, Mid-Ohio, man, that's an institution. How excited were you to be able to go to Mid-Ohio and run the proverbial roller coaster? And I was excited to be there because that is a true sports car course. And not saying that New Jersey or COTA isn't a sound establishment, but Mid-Ohio, man, that I was excited for you. I was excited to be there. Tell me what it was like rolling into Mid-Ohio and knowing that you had, like COTA, you, instead of having the SRO series there, you had the Road to Indy program there. So What was that like, being exposed to all this?
I mean, Mid-Ohio, undoubtedly, I believe, is probably, I mean, as far as like the experience of racing, like all things aside, that experience, that track was one of my favorite race weekends of the year. But before I continue on that, I just want to take a moment here to plug the ShopATANetwork.com website. So this show is not sponsored, it's not partnered, we don't have any financial support to keep the lights on. But what you can do is if you check out ShopATANetwork.com, that is the merchandising store for ATA Network. So we've got a lot of different cool stuff on there, different logos, different shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts, mugs. We got everything in there. So I definitely give it a huge recommend. Check it out. ShopATANetwork.com. And we actually sell exclusive ATA Network podcast apparel. So you can get that podcast apparel. I know I always see Dennis Wilburn in the pit area, and he's always got his ATA Network podcast hoodie on, and he harassed me on when we were bringing the show back. So shout out to Dennis Wilburn for representing that ATA Network and buying a hoodie and representing the podcast, man. It was really cool to see him in a podcast apparel shirt. So if you want to support the show and help us, pay the fees, it's it costs us money to host this on the audio waves, on the Spotify's and the Apple Podcasts and the Google Play Podcasts. So throw us a couple dollars and, it'll help us, cover up some of those costs. So one more time, ShopATANetwork.com. But moving on here to Mid-Ohio. Yeah, it was definitely one of my favorite tracks to race on for sure. And like you said, the changing conditions were intimidating, but it going back to kind of what I said earlier about how the track surface kind of changes how you race on it. It made me a little bit more comfortable to race at Mid-Ohio, but we rolled in there, man, and that place is it's awesome. I mean, the elevation change, the angles of the corners, it's a very unique track. Like COTA was manufactured for Formula One. It was just built, right? In New Jersey, it's just New Jersey. I hate saying that, but it's just New Jersey. You get to Mid-Ohio, man, that's just pardon my French, that's just a kick-ass old school racetrack. They just built the racetrack to the land. They went over that hill. They made a turn over it, and then they brought it over to this end of the property, and it squiggled that way, and then they somehow get back to the start-finish line. It's just that track was just so cool to race on. And you kind of talked about sim racing, and I think Mid-Ohio was, COTA, I obviously did a little bit on the sim, but I'd been there with the school, so there really wasn't no need for a lot of sim practice to really learn COTA. Yep. I already knew COTA. Unfortunately, the New Jersey layout that we ran is not available on iRacing, so it was more difficult for me to be able to learn that track. I'm sure I could have got a mod for any other sim, Seto Corsa, R-Factor, whatever it may be. I just didn't do that because I'm pretty loyal to iRacing. Mid-Ohio was available, and you can race it in, whatever car you want to. I would do it in the Skippy 2000, and then I would do it in a Indy Pro 2000 or a USF 2000 just to be able to balance the two experiences out, because they do handle a little bit differently, both of them, compared to what the Formula 4 car is like. But the sim time really helped me, and you can learn a lot about turn-in points, braking points, and just getting the line down, really, and just knowing what to experience and kind of where to place the car to get it ready for the next corner and just all that stuff. And it's really useful, I think, as far as a learning tool to learn new tracks.
And is it pretty accurate between it might have been like the shift point, the brake point, the lift point, all those things are they pretty damn similar?
So just to put it in perspective, I'll tell you one aspect about iRacing, and I just learned this a couple days ago, right? So this is pretty cool. iRacing has AI functionality now into it, and I know that you don't do iRacing, so you may not know that, and listeners may not know if you're not into iRacing. And anyways, iRacing is basically a subscription service. It's a simulator game, whatever you want to call it. But you race with other people online, and these tracks are laser scanned, right? So everything's pretty accurate. The cars are laser scanned. And I'm doing an AI race with, I think, Indy cars or something. It doesn't really matter what the car is. And I'm going through, and I don't know if you remember this or not, but when I was at Mid-Ohio, I had a really tough time getting out of like the second to final corner because there was a bump in the middle of the track. So I would hit this bump,
that's right.
And I would get in the gas, and I just feel like the car couldn't handle it, right? And I was like, okay, do I straddle the bump? Do I go left of the bump? Do I go over the curbing on the right side and miss this bump? And I was on the sim, and I was running the Indy car, and I spun out in that second to final corner, and I'm like, what happened? And I'm going around the track again afterwards, and I realized that my wheel has force feedback capabilities, and I'm hitting the bump in the simulator because I can feel the bump in the sim. So I think that pretty much answers your question on the accuracy of iRacing. I mean, there's things that obviously, like, one thing that iRacing isn't good at, and this is just, I mean, you're at the limited capabilities of being on a screen and not having the feel of the pants, but like elevation change, you really can't see that as much on the sim. Like, for example, like turn 1 at Coda, I mean, that thing is a mountain.
Oh, God. Climbing a mountain.
You cannot see how tall that thing is in iRacing. So that's probably the big thing, and then obviously the seat of your pants feel. But with my limited practice time compared to the competition, paired with that iRacing experience, I think is really what kind of helped me get, up to speed when we got to Mid-Ohio.
You're now actually in the car. I believe race 1 was in the wet, and race 2 was kind of started out in the rain and went to the dry by the end. Tell me, how was it running there compared to Coda that has such elevation changes and, fighting for whatever position that you get, because you're just coming off of a podium, and I know you want to try to repeat that performance. Walk us through what you tried to do in the race in order to get whatever edge that you could without putting yourself into the wall.
Yeah, so I mean, I learned that pretty quick in qualifying when I did my loop-de-loop going down the downhill section there in the roller coaster.
And what a sweet recovery that was. You guys got to check it out. Go over to his YouTube channel, check that out. It was a cute little loop.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was the only guy that didn't actually go officially off the track. Like, everyone spun out, but I was the only guy that didn't come back with a filthy, dirty race car because it was muddy. Some of those cars came back and it looked like they'd been out doing Monster Jam stuff. But no, I mean, yeah, so the first race, it had rained, and then the Road to Indy people kind of got it somewhat dry, and I believe we went out on slicks for that first one, and I burned my tires up just pushing it way too hard, and finished 4th in that race, and it didn't feel too bad. The track still had a lot of grip. I was experiencing a lot of understeer, actually, and so I was just pushing the front tires too much and was burning them up. Still finished 4th, though, past, I believe, it was Nathan Bird for that position, and it was a pretty good race. I felt comfortable with the track at that point, and nothing really scared me about it. I felt really comfortable. You see all these Road to Indy cars going around this track at, a little bit of a higher speed than what we were running in the Skip Barber car. And so that kind of, that kind of proves to you, okay, well, if they can do it, we can probably do it too. So the confidence level was there, and the performance was there as well. P4, I mean, honestly, is really good. The only thing that makes it doesn't seem good is because it's, you're one position away from a podium, but to be honest, the difference between a 3rd and a 4th really isn't that much. So, yeah, I mean, that didn't really affect me too much. The big difference between race 1 and race 2, however, at Mid-Ohio, where I was actually able to secure a podium finish and on top of that, run the fastest lap of the race. So I went purple. The big difference there was it, once again, rained, and it was actually still partially raining, but no one had really got on the track before us to dry it. And so we went out on track on rain tires, which was a blessing and a curse, right? You go out on rain tires and you're like, okay, I'm not going to have the same amount of grip level that I would on slicks, but it's safer because we're in the rain. But it was also a blessing for me because I felt like I'd burnt up those slicks in that first race. So I was like, okay, cool, I got a new set of tires for me. And let me note, I mean, obviously, if it's not apparent, we only get one set of tires for the weekend unless it rains and we have to switch to rain tires. We only have one set of slicks for a weekend. So getting those new tires was a cool thing. And then I think the track was a little bit obviously wetter in that second race since we obviously made the switch to rain tires. And so people were a lot more cautious than I was. I had realized in all the coaching and lessons that I had learned that really a track surface kind of depends, or it shows you how much grip level is going to be in the track. So whereas in Coda, where we didn't have much grip, well, first off, when I had my little slide moment at Coda, I was on slick tires, and that's going to play a big factor in it. The preferred line around the track, you could still run the dry line, which was new. At Coda, you pretty much had to try to stay off of it, or at least that's what I thought. And then going back and watching some of the other people's videos, they were actually able to make the dry line work as well. So, I think it was just a realization of, really understanding what the car is capable of compared to what I did at Coda. And so I was able to run the dry line and be a little bit more confident than some of those guys, and was able to get around, this year's champion, Johnny Gindy, was able to pass him, which was a confidence builder in itself, and chased down Will Lambros and Joshua Lionel, and in the process ran the fastest lap of the race, which was another cool feat to have. I was able to kind of get to him, and then felt like I was burning my tires up a little bit because they were feeling, and I describe it as like a crunchy feeling. Just felt like that they were really marbling up and just not really accepting the amount of input and speed that I was giving into it. So I got to back off a little bit and then made a final lunge at them towards the final, lap. And then I knew at that point that I didn't really have anything for them. And so then I backed off on that final lap just to kind of cool it down. I knew I had third place locked down. Fourth place wasn't really that close. So that was a really fun race. And I think I really showed my colors in that race for sure. Mid-Ohio, definitely a really awesome experience. It was cool to be able to share that with you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And mind you that this is only like your third appearance in the Formula Series. Being able to perform so much better in the wet at Mid-Ohio than you did at COTA. Obviously, I spoke in the first episode, seat time matters and all that. You're making leaps and bounds, and even you're flirting into the podium in the beginning, and then now you're definitely in the front running for the rest of the series. And if history is any sort of indication of a trend, I'm really looking forward to 2022, because seeing the way that you performed throughout your karting journey and then seeing how you're replicating that for the formula, it's just being a part of that podium with you and getting hosed with champagne. I appreciate that very much, by the way. Not sure your camera did, but regardless, you got COTA out of the way. You got New Jersey, and now you just conquered a true sports car course at Mid-Ohio. Most every race car driver dreams about going to Indy. I find it kind of cool in that you're wrapping your first Formula Series at the place that you started your school in the beginning, at the very, very beginning. You did a one-day introductory course at Indy. Now you're wrapping your first Formula Series. Do me a favor, talk to me about going to Indy and just experiencing it from a different point of view, a different perspective than what you would normally would as a spectator. What was that like, dude? That's cool as hell. Yeah. I'm sorry.
No, it really was. But the thing is about Indy, and it's weird, like I've been there so much now that like, you still feel that spirit, right? I mean, each track that you go to has a personality, has a characteristic. I don't really believe in ghosts, right? But that's kind of what it's like. You feel the people that have been there before. You don't feel that as much as you do at Indy. I mean, that track just has so much character, so much history. Names are made there. I mean, you think of just the newest 4-time Indy 500 champion in Castroneves, Andretti, Foyt, Unser. I mean, there's just a lot of these names in motorsports that are made at this facility. It's just so super emotional every time I go there. But the other thing that I've been there a lot, with the Battle at the Brickyard karting race, making multiple trips to the museum, been there for a Brickyard 400, been there for the Indy 500. I've been there a lot. So it's, you feel that presence of the facility, but the intimidation factor of like being at Indy, it's not like I've been to this school before. It's not like going to a new school. I've been here. I know this place. Yeah. So it didn't have that factor on me, but just being able to be there. And what was really cool about this one is like, you go and practice at Mid-Ohio, and I was pretty good in practice at Mid-Ohio. I wasn't like super duper fast, but I was, closer to the top of the charts. When we got out and practiced at Indianapolis, I was like third place and second place, right? It was like, I got this in the frickin' bag. We transitioned into qualifying, and unfortunately I didn't show that same amount of pace. And I think it just came down to, burning up the tires once again, maybe just overthinking some things, maybe not being in the right mindset when we got to qualifying. But, I still knew the track, still knew where we had to go. You go to sleep that night and you don't do very well in qualifying after being top 3 in practice, and you're like, we're going the wrong direction here. We're losing speed throughout the weekend. What's going on? And you think about all the factors, and you think about, well, maybe it was the weather, maybe it was the wind direction, maybe it's something I ate the day before, whatever. You're just thinking like, man, like, I've podiumed at Mid-Ohio. I've podiumed at New Jersey. I cannot let Indianapolis slip through my fingers.
Sure.
I think another saving grace, once again, that thing that we despised at COTA, that wet stuff that falls from the sky, it came down at Indianapolis, but it felt like saving grace. Like it was, that I think was the main reason I was able to be successful at Indianapolis. And man, that first race in itself is a whole podcast story of
That was a good race, dude.
of information. I mean, I think I was able to prove I belong on the podium at Indianapolis. Like, for sure, I proved myself at Mid-Ohio, right? But, like, you know, it was more of just a process of staying clean, consistent, running fast laps. I proved that I was a racer at Indianapolis, which to be able to do that at Indianapolis, and then another big thing about Indianapolis for me was that was the first race that my dad had seen of me racing the Formula car, and he hadn't been to any of the schools, hadn't been any of the other previous races. So this is the first time he's seeing me behind the wheel of the Formula car, and I'm carving my way through the field, you know, around Indianapolis. And it's, you know, I go back to, like, we went and met Tony Stewart when I was a really young kid at Indianapolis. It was like a big thing for, like, his fan club got invited. I think it was like right after he won the Brickyard 400, and we got a picture with him and got his autograph on a car, and the little diecast still sits in my room. And I think, like, we went to Indianapolis as father and son duo to, you know, meet Tony Stewart and get these autographs. And then fast forward, you know, 20 years down the road, he's watching me race on the same grounds as our hero, our racing hero, Tony Stewart. And it was just like, like, even just saying it now just gives me chills, man. It's just what that means.
It's a good moment. It's a good personal moment. You come full circle.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, you know, you never know how far you'll make it in racing, or really in any hobby or anything that you ever do. You never know how far you're going to make it. And to be able to share that moment with him, it comes down to, like, it really doesn't even super duper matter. I mean, obviously I always want to keep pursuing the next thing, but, like, to be able to do something like that for him and for me, that checked a huge box, in my opinion. Like, something I never thought I would do, right? Even saying it's like, like, I need to, you know, step off the drugs or whatever and get back to reality. It just absolutely unbelievable. And like, you know, basically I've said, started 7th in that race, and, you know, a lot of guys were just making mistakes. It was wet. It was crazy because, like, you're doing the skills that I learned in New Jersey, you know, about having that slide in the car, but you're in the wet. So it's a lot more extreme, and you're not gonna be able to correct it as abruptly as you can in the dry. So you got to be very careful, but you can still dance on that limit, especially in the rain. And it was basically just being consistent, being smart, saving the tires, because apparently that's something that I suck at, and just avoiding the chaos. And there was like one lap, Chase Taus was in front of me, and we're going. We just got out of the Holman Boulevard. We're doing the quick right that leads you back onto the oval, and he, like, got really locked up going in the one corner, and I just got a really good run on him over under into the next corner and just passed him. And then we got to the little infield section there, in the infield to turn number 1, and another guy went off the side, and I got 2 passes in one lap, and just basically by being consistent and smart.
Yep.
And that was
mitigate those mistakes.
It was such a beautiful time. And the craziest thing about this, right, is, and this is one of my favorite stories of the season for sure. So I get to 3rd, and I can count, right, and I know, okay, I'm in 4th. Okay, I made a pass. I'm in 3rd, and I'm running, and I see a car getting closer in my rearview mirror, and I'm like, oh no, like, I'm in podium contention at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and I just talked about how important that was, and I've got a car that's coming quickly behind me that's about to ruin that for me. And it's Nathan Bird, and I'm like, oh, great. Like, it's actually a good driver, too, so he's really going to be able to pounce on me and pass me. And he's got, like, incredible speed, too. Like, he's coming through with a burning passion. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And so he goes to pass me down the front stretch, and I go down to the inside to defend, and it's like, I'm going to try challenging you up to the inside going into turn 1 here, but he straight up clears me going down the front stretch. And I'm like, bro, like, what? And so it's like, I don't have a rebuttal, and it's like, I just lost the podium, and I couldn't say anything about it. I couldn't do anything about it. It's like, I was standing still, and I'm like, that's just so deflating.
I bet.
And so I honestly, I got a checkered flag, and I thought I finished 4th. I thought I lost the podium.
But
And so, and yeah, it's like, oh no. And so I'm going down on the cool down lap. I'm like, damn it. I'm just like cursing at myself. I'm like, this, like, 4th is still good though, right? And so, but you just have that initial emotion of, like, the podium at Indianapolis, right? And so I'm going.
It's those expectations, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm going into the pit lane, and Anthony gives me a fist bump, and I'm like, okay, cool. You know, I kept your car clean in one piece. I understand why you fist bumped me. And then I'm still, like, looking, and I'm like just cursing to myself. And then my dad's up against the pit lane wall, and he's like thumbs up, and like his face is like just so like super excited. And I'm like, I mean, I realize, Dad, this is the first time you've seen me race, but I just missed out on the podium. Like, why are you so excited? Like this is not something to celebrate. And
but Dad, you're wrong.
And so I do that thing where I like look at him, like I got my visor up, right, so you can see my eyes. I look at him, and he's like being all happy and everything. And then I look back at the steering wheel and I shake my head, and I'm like, I like mumble like, fuck. I'm like, and he's like, I look back at him, and he points at me, and he holds up the number 3, and I'm like, I like look in front of me and I count the cars, and I'm like 1, 2, 3, and then I get to me, I'm like 4. I'm like, dude, bro. I watched.
Dad's vision's going.
Yeah, I'm like, bro, did you take your medicines this morning? Because, like, I can count the cars in front of me. I definitely finished 4th. And he's like, he shakes his head no, and he's like, you 3rd. I'm like, what does he know that I don't know? And so I sit there. Now I went from being upset and angry to confused.
Confused as all hell.
And then I'm sitting there, and I'm like, I need somebody else to show up here to confirm this, or I need to know, right? Like, this is, like, what? And so then I see there's like a big screen, like where people can watch the races, right? And it's going through the finishing results, and it's towards the end of the running order. So I'm like, okay, cool. I'll just look at this and see where I stack up. And it goes through, and I see 3rd, and I'm like, oh my God. Like, and then so it went from, it went from this angry to confused to happy. And then for whatever reason, right, the transition from getting out of the car to doing the podium just seemed so fast. So I'm still trying to process what happened while I'm on the podium getting the trophy. I didn't really get a chance to really absorb that moment. So, I get out of the car and I hug my dad, and people are congratulating me, and then we make the walk to the podium, and that's where Brendan's at, and he greets me. I'm like, let's go. And I'm like, I'm finally starting to get to that emotion. We get up on the podium, I hold the trophy, spray the champagne, which, that's a cool moment, but I've done this twice before now, so it doesn't really super sink in quite yet.
So you're already getting used to it now, huh?
Yeah, because, my ego. When it really hit me, though, and this is one of the coolest moments of my life, for sure. I mean, this whole thing's a cool moment in my life, but this particularly was really cool. I'm walking down the podium with my trophy and my champagne bottle, and I've got Brendan Lauer, I've got Wayne Regal. I haven't said anything about Wayne Regal, but huge shout out to Wayne. Wayne and his friend Dallas actually joined us for Mid-Ohio and Indy and shot photos. And man, those are some really good photos. And I'm glad that they were there to be able to capture that, because these are photos that I'm going to cherish forever for sure. And we get to the bottom of the stairs, and there's a guy with the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Museum, and he's got this binder, and he's like, and the thing is, it's not like, I mean, this is still pretty crazy, but at the moment it really hit hard. He's like, so we've got this book here of every competitor that has ever raced at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And we want to take your name down and your autograph, and we're going to archive them digitally, and we're going to put this in the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Museum. And
every competitor or every podium finisher?
It is every competitor. That's where it was kind of a little foggy, right? But it still meant the world to me. Right. I mean, even if you've got the little asterisk next to the name that says this guy was a podium finisher, whatever, it doesn't matter. I still got to race professionally at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And like, that's when it really hit. Like, I had to take a moment to like absorb myself and be like, Bobby, right? Don't cry in front of all your friends and your dad and this random guy at the museum. Don't cry. But like, this was like the it moment. Like, it was like, that's when it finally hit. Like, this isn't a simulation. This isn't iRacing anymore. This is real stuff. This is it. It was just crazy. And then I put down my name and my number or my name and my signature rather, and
ShopATNetwork.com.
Yeah, yeah. YouTube.com/ATNetwork. Sorry, I'd usually sign that at the end of all my autographs, sir. You got to make sure it's digitally accurate when you put it in the museum. But no, like that moment, man, in itself was just insane.
Dude, I didn't know that. That's cool as hell.
Yeah, and that's when it really hit, because I didn't hit before, because I'm going through all these swings of emotions of like, like what's going on. Like, I can't go through all these emotions that fast and then be able to process the next 20 minutes, right? I need to sit down for a minute and be like, what just happened? But I didn't have that chance. And then once that guy hit me with the binder of autographs, that's when it was finally like, oh, okay, I did it. Yeah, it was super, super awesome. Super. I mean, and I know I say that, and there's no words to really explain that. I can say awesome,
There isn't. I can't
amazing,
imagine.
unbelievable. It's literally, truly unbelievable, and not even just using the word. Like, picture unbelievable. Like, picture that you're sitting in your living room and you look out the window and there's a SpaceX rocket that just lands in your front yard. Like, that's how unbelievable this is to me. Like, I cannot fathom being on the podium in Indianapolis. This is a dream of mine since I was a kid, something I never thought I'd be able to achieve, and here I am doing it.
Well, that's some rare air, dude. That's incredible. So, what a ride 2021 really was. I mean, 21 was amazing. What in the world do you have going on for 2022, and how does that change your dreams? What's going on, man? Everyone wants to know, including me, because I didn't know if I'm grabbing a camera bag or not.
So we're gonna go racing again in 2022. We're not officially yet when we're recording this show, but ideally by the time it comes out, we'll be going racing again in the 2022 Skip Barber Race Series. So I'm really looking forward at this year in 2022 being able to race again. And being able to bring you guys along,
Awesome.
all the viewers, and obviously you and all my friends along for the journey. Keep it going, expectations for this year. We've gotten a couple third place finishes now. We need to start seeing a little bit more higher finishes. So clearly we're really eyeballing that first win sometime this season, and we can do it. I think there's a lot of tracks on the schedule this year that I think are going to suit my driving style.
Yes, so where are we going, dude?
A lot of fast tracks. So we'll be actually, let me pull this up. One track that I will say, without actually seeing the schedule in front of me, that I'm really looking forward to is Watkins Glen. That track, man. I mean, being a NASCAR fan primarily when I was a kid and knowing Watkins Glen, that track is super cool. And I think that's going to be one that suits my driving style. It's a very fast track, kind of like how we experienced New Jersey. So I think I think it'll be a really, really fun time to be able to race at Watkins Glen. And I mean, not just NASCAR there, but IndyCar, Formula One. Besides Watkins Glen, we start the season out at Lime Rock Park, which is another cool track to race at. I mean, that's like the home for Skip Barber. So I mean, it'll be cool to be able to race there. VIR, Virginia International Raceway. As previously mentioned, Watkins Glen. We'll be going back to New Jersey Motorsports Park, but I will be racing on the Thunderbolt layout for the first time. So that one may be a little bit different since some guys have had experience there because I missed out on that round from last year, but it'll still be a good time. Go back to New Jersey, a place that I'm, at least an area that I'm familiar with. And then we'll be going up to Wisconsin to Road America, which I'm also really excited for that one. And then we'll be
hoping to make that one.
Yeah. Fingers crossed. You better have your August 19th to 21st schedule open. We go from Road America up north to down south to Florida for Sebring International Raceway, another, very historic racetrack, bumpy. Hopefully have my teeth left after I get done with that race. And then there'll be a season. Turn one, God. Turn one in the last corner. Like, there's this Sebring. That's going to be a challenging track for sure. Season finale is to be determined, but we'll see where they end up winding up with that one. It's kind of tough saying. Most of these races, however, too, are actually going to be run with SRO. So we'll be running on the same weekend with GT America, TC America, GT4, all that stuff. So it'll be really cool year this year. Hopefully I'm posting this and have actual confirmation that I'm doing that. So if not, then this whole section is going to get cut out. But if you're listening to this, then it's probably happening. So yeah, that's what my 2022 will look like. And goals, like I said, obviously want to get that first win and just want to be a challenger for a championship. I think we can do it. I think if we would have ran a full season in 2021, I think we could have probably top 3, top 4 in the points. We were pretty consistently up there in the top 5. I mean, we, go back to where we finished. I mean, we had like a 7th place finish and a 6th place finish, but everything else was either 4th or higher. So really impressive season, I think, for the limited starts that I had. So really proud with how we did this year and next year, I guess last year in 2021, and really excited to see what we can do here in 2022.
Absolutely. No, and I definitely think having most of those weekends, I believe you said that we're going to be running with the TC America, that puts both ends of the Barber spectrum together in one race weekend at the same venue. Having, the TC America champion Eric Powell and Carter Fartuck and a couple of the other drivers that run those respective vehicles, having that opportunity to maybe learn from them. Again, just all about that exposure. Man, my heart goes out to you. I'm wishing you the best of luck in everything that you do, obviously in life, but in the more immediate, moment. Again, going back to that trend, seeing what I saw through karting and in your first Formula Series season this past year, I'm like, obviously, yeah, you want to change your expectations and upgrade them to a realistic level. But I feel as though that the trend will continue, and I think we're going to be seeing some good things. And I wish you the best of luck. And freaking proud of you, dude. That's some badass stuff.
Thank you. No, it's been really cool to be able to share that with everybody, and especially you. To have you behind the camera, and without you being there and being able to capture it and be able to give me something to come home to edit and send out to the world. Most people can't make it to these races. Most people know about all this just because of the videos. Mm-hmm. And so without that media coverage that you helped me provide, most people wouldn't really even know about it or care about it. So to be able to share that with everybody is really cool and bring it all full circle. My mission statement is really just to kind of prove that, and what's really weird is like ATA Network, ATA stands for Achieve the Achievable. And a little side note, that was back talking about like video game achievements, right? It was all video gaming content back then. So it was all about, how to get this achievement guide and Fallout 2. So I've kind of rebranded it mentally in my mind that, I've done a lot of crazy cool things. And it's all been really about my hustle and hard work and being passionate and getting out and connecting with people. And so that Achieve the Achievable message is really kind of transitioned into that kind of thing of like, if you really want to do something, if you really want to achieve it, anything is achievable. So like I said before, you just go out and achieve the achievable, which really just kind of opens you up to be able to do, whatever you want. So that's kind of my message, my motto, what I've stood by. I mean, I don't know of how many other people that, I barely at the time had the budget to race iDrive, and to be able to say that I race Formula Car now, we're 5 years down the road. That's incredible. I mean, that you just don't hear about that. So it's just been really cool to be able to share that with everybody and to have you along for the ride, man. It's been really cool, man. So do you have any closing thoughts here on the show before we close it?
No, I mean, other than the fact that, these last couple of years have been really trying on everybody, with the global pandemic and all that. And we're all trying to find our normal and trying to break through any barriers that we may have. So again, dude, I wish you the best of luck in everything that you do. And I'm really happy and just overwhelmed with, being a part of this journey of yours. That way, 10 years from now, I can say, I knew that little snotty kid when whatever goal, you may have, or any of you, the listeners may have, just, do exactly that, because it's working for Bobby. Go out there, achieve the achievable, go out there and try to go after whatever it is that you want to go get. You're not going to get it unless you go try, and that's the way it was with me with Global Force Kart Sport and the iDrive program. Go out there and do it. The most important step is that first one, and take yourself out of that comfort zone. Go achieve it. Go after it. And for the love of God, keep yourself safe. Keep your family and your loved ones safe. And I look forward to joining you into, future podcasts and future races, wherever you may be. But just remember, you always got that cart.
Thank you, Matt Zigaitis, once again, for coming on and being a co-host. You can actually find all of his social medias, so you can kind of go out and support him and everything he's got going on. I mean, he's going to be a kart racer full-time in 2022, and so you'll be able to kind of follow along with him and his race team. And he's really good about posting behind-the-scenes content, too, when he's out on these shoots with me. So definitely go give him a follow. You can find him on Facebook, Instagram, and all those links will be in the link website at bobbykrug.com/podcast. So that's where you'll be able to go and click to find him. But if you literally just go Global Force 74 on Instagram, I believe, is that correct?
That's correct.
Global Force 74 on Instagram, and then you just literally search on Facebook Global Force Kart Sport, and you'll be able to find it. You'll be able to see his logo and everything he's got going on. So once again, thank you, Matt, for coming on this show. I want to thank all of you guys for tuning in and listening to this episode. Hopefully you guys are enjoying this return of season 2. Hopefully we can keep the ball going. Got a lot of cool things planned coming up in future episodes. But until next time, thanks for tuning in, and I will see you guys in the next episode of the AATA Network Podcast.